Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. In this video, we will continue Epistle of Sufism, al-Qushayriyyah. Before start, if you still not subscribed, please subscribe and press bell icon. So let's continue. Unification and separation. The expressions unification and separation are often mentioned in their Sufi discourses. Our master Abu Ali al-Daqqaq used to say, separation is something that is attributed to you. Unification, on the other hand, is something that is taken from you. He meant that whatever the servant of God acquires by means of fulfilling the requirements of his servitude and by means of his status as a human being is separation. As for unification, it is everything that comes from the real, such as the bringing forth of new entities and the bestowal of grace and favor upon humans. These are the minimal requirements for the state of unity and separation. Because they continue to take notice of their deeds, when God, may He be exalted, allows a person to continue to take notice of his acts of obedience and disobedience, this person finds himself in a state of separation. When, on the other hand, God, may He be blessed, allows a person to see his own deeds, this person acquires the attribute of unification. Thus, the assertion of the created world belongs to separation, whereas the assertion of the real is an attribute of unification. There is no escape for the servant of God from both unification and separation. For he who does not have separation cannot achieve perfect servitude, and he who does not have unification has no knowledge of God. God's words in Quran, the only we serve, point to separation, while his words, to thee alone we have recourse, point to unification. When the servant of God addresses him, may he be exalted, in his intimate conversation with him as a beggar, a supplicant, a lauder, a giver of thanks, a renouncer of evil deeds, or a humble beseecher, as he places himself in the position of separation, and when he listens in his inner self to what his Lord tells him and hears in his heart what God imparts to him by calling upon him, admonishing him, instructing him, or intimating something to his heart and willing him to follow this intimation, he finds himself under the sign of unification. I heard Abu Ali al-Daqqaq, may God have mercy on him, say, a singer recited the following verses before Master Abu Sahal al-Suluki, may God have mercy on him. I have made my vision of you my greatest pleasure. Abu al-Qasim al-Nasrbadi, may God have mercy on him, was there at that time. Master Abu Sahal said, made should be read in the second person. Al-Nasrbadi said, no, it should be read in the first person. Master Abu Sahal then asked, isn't the essence of unification more complete? Al-Nasrbadi fell silent. I heard that Sheikh Abu Abdurrahman al-Sulami interpreted this story in the same way as Abu Sahal. The meaning of this as follows. When someone says made in the first person, it means that the speaker speaks about the state of his own self, as if the servant of God implies that this action comes from him. As for the one who says that made should be in the second person, he absolves himself from any deliberate action and says to his Lord, "It is you who have distinguished me with this quality, and not I by means of my own deliberate action." The first interpretation contains the danger of an egoistic claim, whereas the second implies the denial of one's free power to act and the assertion of God's beneficence and generosity. There is a great difference between the one who says, "I worship you through my own free effort," and the one who says, "I witness you through your beneficence and kindness." The unification of unification, Jam al-Jam. The unification of unification is higher than this. People differ on this issue according to the differences in their spiritual states and in their ranks of spiritual attainment. When someone reasserts both himself and the created world, yet sees everything in this world as being dependent on God, this is unification. When, on the other hand, through the appearance and under the complete domination of the power of the divine reality, one is rendered incapable of contemplating the created world, barred from one's own self, and taken in one's entirety from sensing anything else. This is the unification of unification. Thus, separation is seeing something other than God. May He be great and exalted. Unification is seeing everything through the eyes of God, and the unification of unification is total self-dissolution in God and the loss of perception of anything other than God. May He be great and exalted. As a result of the onslaught of the irresistible powers of the divine reality. After this comes the lofty state that the Sufis call second separation, Farqani. In this state, the servant of God returns to sobriety whenever he must perform any of his religious duties so that he can fulfill his religious obligations in their proper times. This is a return to God, the Most High, through God, not to the servant through the servant. In this state, the servant sees himself being driven by God's will. May He be exalted. He sees God's power as the ultimate source of his essence and his self. He sees God's knowledge and will as the true performer of his actions and the originator of his spiritual states. By the phrase unification and separation, some Sufis imply that creatures are subject to the dispositions of the divine reality. He has united everything under his power and disposal, since he is the originator of their essences and the determiner of their attributes. He has then divided them into several classes. Some of them are destined to be among the blessed, others are destined to be far removed from him and to be among the wretched. Some of them he will guide aright, others he will lead astray and make blind. Some of them he will weal from himself, others he will draw near. Some of them he will make his intimates by allowing them to join him. Others he will make despair of his mercy. Some of them he will grant his assistance. Others he will frustrate in their aspirations to realize his true essence. Some of them he will keep sober. Others he will obliterate. Some of them he will draw nigh. Others he will make absent from themselves. Some of them he brings into his presence, makes them drink and intoxicates them. Others he renders miserable and rejects, then banishes and expels. One cannot count all the varieties of his actions, nor can they be exhausted by any explanation and enumeration. The Sufis recite the following verses by Al-Junayd, may God have mercy on him, about the meaning of unification and separation. I have attained a true realization of you in my innermost heart, and I converse with you with my own tongue. We were united in one sense and separated in the other. At one moment, my awe of you makes me absent from seeing you directly. Yet, at the next moment, my ecstasy makes you close to my very core. The Sufi also recite the following: when he appears to me, nothing seems greater to me than he. Then I return to the original state as if I never left it. I become unified and dispersed from myself through him, for two numbers can join to become a singular one. Annihilation, fana, and subsistence, baka, in God. By annihilation, the Sufis refer to the disappearance of blameworthy qualities, whereas by subsistence, they refer to the persistence of praiseworthy qualities. The servant of God cannot but have one of these two types of qualities, for it is well known that if he does not have one type, he will inevitably have the other. When his blameworthy qualities are annihilated, he will possess praiseworthy ones. Likewise, when he is dominated by blameworthy characteristics, he will be deprived of praiseworthy ones. Know that the servant of God is characterized by deeds, morals, and spiritual states. Deeds are what he undertakes of his own free will. Morals are his inherent predispositions, which, however, can be changed through continual exercises. Spiritual states come to the servant from the outset, however, their subsequent purity is determined only by the cleanness of his actions. In this respect, they are similar to morals. God allows the person whose heart preoccupies itself with morals through its own concerted effort and banishes from it any reprehensible qualities to improve his morals. Likewise, God will allow the person who strives to purify his deeds of his own accord to purify and protect his spiritual states. When someone abandons the evil deeds denounced by the divine law, it is said that he is annihilated from his passions, and when he is annihilated from his passions, he subsists in the service of God through his determination and sincerity. When someone renounces this world, it is said that he is annihilated from his desire of it, and when he is annihilated from his desire of it, he subsists in the sincerity of his repentance. When someone has refined his morals by cleansing his heart of envy, malice, avarice, greed, anger, and pride, as well as any other impurities that adhere to the soul, it is said, he has been annihilated from the base character traits. And when one is annihilated from bad morals, one subsists in chivalry and truthfulness. Chivalry and truthfulness. When one observes the workings of divine power in the vicissitudes of divine decrees, it is said that one has been annihilated from seeing events as emanating from creatures. And when one is annihilated from perceiving events as products of secondary causes, one subsists in the attributes of the real. When the power of the true reality takes possession of someone, he no longer notices the essence, effects, traces, or vestiges of anything other than God. They say of such a person, he has been annihilated from God's creatures and now subsists in God. The servant of God is annihilated from his blameworthy deeds and base states when he does not perform them, and he is annihilated from his own self and from all creatures when he ceases to perceive both them and himself. When he is annihilated from deeds, morals, and spiritual states, all this no longer exists for him. One can say that someone has been annihilated from himself and from all creatures, yet in reality, his self and the creatures continue to exist. However, he has no knowledge, perception, or sign of them. His self exists and the creatures continue to exist objectively. However, he is oblivious of them and is capable of perceiving neither his self nor the creatures. Imagine, for example, that a man enters into the presence of a mighty ruler or a highly revered person and becomes so self effaced in his reverence that he forgets about both himself and the other people in the assembly, including the revered individual himself. When he would emerge from the assembly and be asked about the people there and the behavior of the revered individual and about his own behavior, he would not be able to say anything about that. God said, "And when they saw him, Joseph, they so admired him that they cut their hands. When they met Joseph, upon him be peace, They took no notice at all of the pain of cutting their hands, although they were more feeble than men. They said, "This is no mortal," while he in fact was mortal. They said, "He is none other than a noble angel," while he in fact was not an angel. And this is the state of one group of creatures meeting another creature. You can only imagine the man to whom the sight of God, glory be to him, were disclosed. If he were to lose the sense of himself and his fellow human beings, would there be any surprise in that? When a man is annihilated from his ignorance, he subsists in his knowledge, and when he is annihilated from his passions, he subsists in his repentance. When he is annihilated from his desire of the world, he persists in its renunciation. When he is annihilated from his passionate drive, he subsists in his longing for God. This is true of all human characteristics. After the servant of God is annihilated from his characteristics, as we have just described, he advances from this stage to the next one, at which he loses sight of his annihilation. This is described by the Sufi poet who said, "Some people wander across the land by the desert, while others wander in the arena of his love. Annihilate yourself thrice, then subsist close to the Lord." The first annihilation is from oneself and one's attributes through subsistence in the attributes of God. Then comes the annihilation from the attributes of God in the contemplation of God. Then one is annihilated from the vision of one's own annihilation by being subsumed in the existence of God Himself. For this video, we will finish here. We will continue inshallah in the next video. Please don't forget to subscribe. Till then, goodbye. Allah Hafiz.